Can we still talk to you? Do you need
can
total
indeed.
focus?
I can play and talk at some time.
He's ambidextrous. Yeah, he's fine.
That's a lovely part about these games. You really get to dive into the strategy here. What tools are you giving us to conduct our large-scale warfare?
So, James is in command of Cao Cao, and he's got quite a varied army, and he'll be approaching the city. Here we can see Lu Bu's welcoming committee coming up to the city gates right now. These are big arrow towers either side. They're dotted throughout the city. They're nice defensive points for Lu Bu's forces to kind of hide near, because it gives them that extra punch and protects from our forces as we're going in. But the idea is this siege has been underway for some time, so you'll see holes in the wall like this, and we're going to exploit those because we've brought some trebuchets with us, which is everybody's favourite siege weapon, as we know.
Weapon.
Yep. Apparently can fire 90 kilograms of weight over 300 metres.
I've heard that.
Yeah. It's a constant surprise to me. So yeah, we'll be throwing a lot of rocks at the wall basically with those guys. And yeah, we've got quite a varied force. We've got a load of heavy spearmen, we've got some archers, we've got some cavalry, and we'll have a wave of reinforcements coming in, about a third of the way in, hopefully, led by the Zhao brothers, who are some more of these kind of legendary characters from the Three Kingdoms period. They were cousins of Cao Cao, and yeah, they'll be coming in with a ton of cavalry to help us smash through the defences.
Seeing a couple generals here. Is that who's in the front line?
Yeah, that's right.
More than one general?
There's Cao Cao himself. So he's like the overall army commander. But yeah, the one thing we're doing in support of, this massive cast of kind of legendary heroes and characters, one of the changes we've made in battle is that you can bring multiple generals into battle with you, and each of those has their own retinue. Because each general type has access to his own sort of suite of recruitment stuff that he can recruit and that he supports and that suits his character class kind of thing. So you've got we've got a guardian character guy called Yue Jin he's brought these guys. These are heavy spear guard, and you can put them in this kind of tortoise formation. So they're kind of slow, plodding, methodically moving towards the walls, but they're well protected. They will get rains of arrows on them and very few of them go down because they just, they lock their shields and tie like a tortoise.
So Total War Games are known for your beautiful, beautiful epic battles. The camera control is a huge thing for me because I love zooming down in. How much camera control do we have in this Total War?
Oh, as much as any other. You've got that micro to macro kind of scale shift that we've always done. But it's worth getting in real close to stuff and seeing the detail, especially. Again, I just keep coming back to the characters because that's what this period is all about.
Right.
So Lu Bu here in his courtyard, is resplendent in his armour, and he's on an epic mount. He's got a horse called Red Hair, who was it second, or was he the fastest horse of the Three Kingdoms period?
Second fastest. We kept getting corrected. We were brand manager when we got it wrong.
Right, so second fastest horse.
Who's got the fastest?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you know
I actually don't know that one. I know about that horse is famous though.
Yeah. So these are kind of ancillary items almost for characters. So if we beat Lu Bu in a campaign game, in a battle in a campaign game, we'd have a chance of looting Red Hair, and maybe we could put Cao Cao on Red Hair. And you can only imagine how insulted Lu Bu would be by an action like that. So he's going to absolutely hate you if you do that, which is great.
You have a ton of factions. I know it's around 11 factions?
Yeah, that's right. 11 playable factions out of the box. And, a real range. Each of those factions is basically a character and a ton of other characters in his faction and all the armies that they can kind of recruit and bring as well. So, we're approaching characters in a very, very different way to how we've ever done it before. We're designing them with more depth, with more features to them effectively. They'll have personalities of their own. They'll have their own motivations. They'll have their own drives. They'll have their own friends and rivals, which they'll build and break relationships on their own without you doing anything throughout the game. So if you've got two characters in a faction who are kind of working together well, they might start bonding, and then there'll be a sort of bond of brotherhood between them. And then, say, if you took those two guys into battle and one of them fell in battle, the other one you might lose control of him. He might tear towards the enemy, berserk style,
Oh
just trying to take down as many guys as he can. So,
That's so cool.
Power of love.
yeah,
Right?
exactly,
Romance of the Three
exactly.
Kingdoms,
Yeah.
based off the novel.
And
Yeah.
what I mean, you illustrated some ways we're going to see those interactions there about characters that form bonds. Are we going to have verbal interactions? Will those be changing over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so based on the relationships, you'll see. I mean, you'll see it in the battle here in a second, I'm sure. But the characters, they sort of spark conversations back and forth with each other throughout the course of a battle. So you'll see, rivals will insult each other, and friends will have a sort of healthy banter, and and it all supports the idea that they've got relationships in the campaign games.
Well, you talked about the importance of being faithful to these characters that people have loved and adding depth to them. And as I understand it, there's actually 2 different game modes, 2 different ways to play, 2 different ways to remain faithful to the same characters. Can
That's
you tell us a
right,
little
yeah.
bit about the romance versus the classic?
Yeah, so our kind of default out of the box mode is romance mode, because a lot of what we're depicting was written about in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms in the 14th century, which is very much a romanticised history of events. Yeah, nice big charge.
Ah,
there.
it's just
These
cool
are-
looking.
these guys are
Did you see
great,
the
yeah.
bodies? Oh,
Yeah, flying about the
right.
place. Yeah. So in that mode, your famous warriors like Lu Bu will be superhuman on the battlefield. They'll carve through. They'll be like a combine harvester going through a regular.
Yeah, the dramatic,
infantry.
powerful
Exactly,
superhero that you
exactly,
want to feel.
and really kind of projecting that bravado and that power. So, but if you switch to classic mode before you start a campaign, it'll be a much more kind of slightly more academic style of game, more
Yes.
like a traditional historical total war game, where those characters will be like regular generals. They'll be regular human beings in battle.
Hey.
Xiao brothers arrived.
Does the classical mode for the campaign relate entirely to the battle interactions, or is that also going to be part of like what you have to do to maintain your army? You're actually going to have is it a different interface between the 2 modes?
No, not really. But there are ways in which it differs in the campaign side of the game as well. So we have in the third century, the records of the Three Kingdoms was written, and this is a very kind of elbow patches, spectacles on the nose. This army fought this army at this place, and this many people were killed, and this much grain was taken from the city. It's very much.
The little
data
Sun
at the
Tzu
time.
sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
little classic.
it's all very factual, and it wasn't until 14th century that the Romance of the Three Kingdoms came along and brought these guys to life in a way they'd never had been before. So one of the differences we have between the sort of classic mode and the romance mode in the campaign game is that we build narrative events that happen at key periods in the game. So a certain thing happened in say 199 AD, then we can depict that. We'll have a little thing pop up and say, a great flood of this river plain happened and it washed the fields away and stuff like that. So you'll have events that will happen according to factual history. But in the romance mode, those are more built around the narrative of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Okay.
So there'll be much more about epic rivalries between characters and that sort of stuff. So the feel of the game will be slightly different between the 2 of them. Yeah.
Cool. So I have one good question. For people that haven't able to get into the Total War series, how inviting is this to new players?
As inviting as we can make it, really. We're going to stage your initial approach in the game and teach you how to use the tools that you've got available to you.
Well, how are these new players going to get their hands on the game, and where can they follow you for more information?
Well, it's out in spring 2019, so next year. I haven't got an exact date yet. And what's the other question again?
Where can they